And welcome once again to Maxims of Law, Part 4. We'll be going over some more of these Maxims of Law. We'll have Black's Law Dictionary at the ready in case there's any words that aren't clearly explained, and we'll make sure we leave no word behind. On that note, let's get right down to it, to the Maxims of Law. So we left off at corrupt acts and corruption. If the audio and everything sounds good out there, please let me know. I double check on this end here the best I can, and looks like everything is good so far. So let's proceed. All right, thanks. So, corrupt acts, corruption. It is not the rigor, but the inexpediency of laws and acts of authority which make them tyrannical. Nice. So it's not the rigor, but the expediency of laws and acts of authority which make them tyrannical. So this is saying that the laws, acts of authority should be rigorous, meaning following code, practice should follow policy. The inexpediency of laws and acts of authority make them tyrannical. So let's continue here. Things bad or corrupted, in principle, at the commencement improves not by lapse of time, does not achieve a good end. So if we start something that are bad or corrupted in principle, when we begin, its lapse of time does not help achieve a good end. So over time, if it was started in bad principles, it's not going to achieve a good end. You can see this applied to fraud and such too. For instance, public documents are not to be destroyed other than by their expiration, or if they were initiated in fraud, commenced in fraud. All right, let's continue. It is a poisonous gloss which corrupts the essence of the text. Nice. A poisonous gloss. Once a fraud, always a fraud. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, indeed. And welcome and thanks for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate everyone showing up for this. This makes it fun, and all the feedback here in chat is always appreciated. So let's continue down the. Let's see, actually, I can do this a little bit better there. There we go. All right. Corruption of the best is worst. And that comes from Blacks, huh? There may be an abuse of everything of which there is a use. Virtue is only accepted. So there can be no abuse of virtue. Interesting. Corruption is always the forerunner of despotism. Interesting. Once again, corruption is the forerunner of despotism. And I like this one here. This is a little bit nicer to get into about the, just for further thought on our own, about the inexpediency of laws and acts of authority, making them tyrannical. They sometimes say the weight is sometimes worse than the punishment. The impending cloud of doom, as it can also be called too. So we're on to crime and criminal acts. Well, there's a saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's also another saying that power corrupts, but PowerPoint corrupts absolutely. And that's why we're not doing a PowerPoint presentation for this. Let's continue. Oh, before we do, not only is this not a PowerPoint presentation, but this isn't to be construed as any kind of lawful legal advice, professional or personal in any way, shape, or form. This is only for entertainment, informational purposes, and don't do this at home. All right, let's continue. Crime and criminal acts. See also punishment and wrong. He who does not forbid a crime while he may sanctions it. And in this definition, sanction is to approve. One who is accessory to a crime cannot be guilty of a higher degree of a crime than his principal. The crime of treason exceeds all other crimes in its punishment. And that's from Black, 2nd edition. And Bouvier's. The crime of treason exceeds all other crimes in its punishment. The character of a past offense is never aggravated by a subsequent act or matter. Felony, by force of the term, signifies a capital crime perpetrated with a malignant mind. Right. Let's see here. My chat's not keeping up here. Just 1 second on the screen so I can keep highlighting for you guys too. All right, there we go. All right, now it's back. Okay. Okay, we get that one. Prevention is better than cure. Well, that's certain. I also like to say preparation is the best form of prevention. And that's probably due to the hurricanes we get here in Florida. Fortunately, this one's not coming to our area. But I feel for those where it is. But as it is, life in Florida, I'm sure they are prepared. No one is called an accessory after the fact, but he who knew the principal to have committed a felony and received and comforted him. Comforted. So you can't be an accessory after the fact unless you knew the principal to have committed a felony and received and comforted him. Interesting. No one shall be called a principal felon except the party actually committing the felony or the party present aiding and abetting in its commission. That's an important element. Yeah, we get a conspiracy comes into this, doesn't it? All right, let's see if that's still going there. Yes, nice. All right, let's see here. Felonies implied in every treason. He who is once criminal is presumed to be always criminal in the same kind or way. Wow. Drunkenness both inflames or aggravates and reveals every crime. Wow. All right. In more atrocious crimes, the intent is punished, though an effect does not follow. Interesting. In the more atrocious crimes, the intent is punished, though an effect does not follow. So I guess that's more of a catharsis there, the punishment. Facility of a pardon is an incentive to crime. The hope of impunity holds out a continual temptation to crime. Wow. If a man kill another, he is held guilty of a felony. Crime vitiates everything which springs from it. In offenses, the intention is regarded, not the event. So this is an important distinction here. Yes, the intention is regarded, not the event. Intent, not event. In offense. Yes, sir. Let's continue here. Extortion is a crime when, by color of office, any person extorts that which is not due, or more than is due, or before the time when it is due. So, three different factors there, right? Extortion is a crime when, by color of office, any person extorts that which is not due, more than due, or before the time when it is due. Important to think about extortion is a crime when, by color of office, any person extorts that which is not due, or more than is due, or before the time when it is due. So, crimes are extinguished by death. Black, second edition. In criminal matters or cases, a general malice of intention is sufficient if united with an act of equal or corresponding degree. Well, I guess a general malice of intention is sufficient if united with an act of equal or corresponding degree. So the act has to be corresponding in degree, commensurate with the general malice of intention, the bad intention. Wow. So that's an interesting way to look at it. In criminal matters or cases, a general malice of intention is sufficient with an act of equal or corresponding degree. So the act corresponding with the general malice of intention. Yeah, that's with a general malice. How do you get an equal or corresponding with a general? That's kind of confusing and a bit there, but it is a maxim. So let's proceed. In criminal acts, the will be taken for the deed. So the will, the intent, will be taken for the deed. The will and the proposed end distinguished crimes. In crimes, the will and not the consequence is looked to. In crimes, the will and not the consequence. So if someone is harmed, it's not the harm necessarily in a crime like this. That would be the crime is the will, not the consequence. Capital crimes are punished by death. Crimes carry the person. An example. The commission of a crime gives the courts of the place where it was committed jurisdiction over the person of the offender, over the person of the offender. Get that? The accessory does not proceed, but follows the principle. Yeah, this is very true here. They want you to testify to establish intent. This is why, as we saw one of the other maxims before, consent makes the law. So without testimony, without consent, without intent, it makes things a little bit hard to make a case. All right, let's proceed here. So this is where these maxims really is, like I say, it's basically where the rubber meets the road as the law is executed. So it's good to know these basic foundations and where they may apply in different situations, because this is how things really function. This is the functional relation between the nexus of crimes or deeds in the law. So let's continue here. In high treason, no one can be an accessory, but only principal. So in high treason, there's no accessories. Anyone involved, you're all principal treasonous. The instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates it. Let's see, that he. So let's see, the instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates it. Maybe it should be than. It could be, because these are scanned and sometimes things get changed. Although this looks like an image scan document. But I believe that could be even a typo. They made mistakes back then too. So in that reading, it would be the instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates it, which makes sense. All crimes that are committed openly are lighter or have a less odious appearance than those committed secretly. False in one thing, false in everything. This is a great one. And this is in Latin too, but this is, of course, in English that we're going over these maxims. Where a party is clearly shown to have embezzled one article of property, it is a ground of presumption that he may have embezzled others also. So that's a good one there. And let's see here. Yeah, this, there we go. That stupid thing there. Here we go. Great, thanks. Okay. An outlaw is, as it were, put out of the protection of the law. Outlaw. It is not just and proper that he who speaks ill of a bad man should be condemned on that account, for it is fitting and expedient that the crimes of bad men should be known. It is not just proper that he who speaks ill of a bad man. It is not just and proper that he who speaks ill of a bad man should be condemned on that account, for it is fitting and expedient that the crimes of bad men should be known. Okay, I get it. So you want to know as soon as possible about bad men before they hurt others. So you should speak out, I guess. It is. Yeah, you can't condemn someone for speaking out of a bad man. Custom. See also common law. Law. In those things by common right, I'm sorry, in those things which by common right are conceded to all, the custom of a particular district or place is not to be alleged. So that's a, are we getting into the tragedy of the commons here? The custom of a particular district or place is not to be alleged. Conceded are. Oh, I get it. Okay, so yeah, this kind of really gets into the fabric of America too. Let's continue here. A custom introduced against reason ought rather to be called usurpation than a custom. So a custom introduced against reason. That's great. A custom should be certain, for an uncertain custom is considered null. And that's from Blacks and Bouvier's. All right, let's see where we are here. Custom is observed for law. Custom is the best expounder or interpreter of the laws. Custom is more powerful than grant. That comes from Blacks also. Wow, more powerful than grant. Grant you something, or customary access, granted access. Custom is more powerful than grant. If it's customary, then yeah, this is another good one too. You know, when we talk about customs and things common, this is where we get into the common spaces and shared, government, where they're trustees of the people's property and it's shared in that sense and administered by others. Reason is the formal cause of custom. Reason is the source and mold of custom. So this is saying that reason is the formal cause of custom. So customs are based on reason, but there's a form, and that particular form is how the cause of custom, how the custom can cause or cause people to behave or act within that custom. Reason is the source and mold of custom. So again, reason is the source and mold being the form of custom. So same thing, different ways of saying it. This is why we like the different interpretations. One's from Black's and one is from Bouvier's. A custom grounded on a certain and reasonable cause supersedes the common laws. Yeah, that's a deep one. A custom grounded on a certain and reasonable cause supersedes common laws. A custom, though it be of great authority, should never prejudice manifest truth. Wow. Though it be of great authority, the custom should never prejudice manifest truth. Things which are done contrary to the custom and usage of our ancestors neither please nor appear right. Now, this is a nice one here to honor, your heritage. Things which are done contrary to the custom and usage of our ancestors neither please nor appear right. Yeah, reasonable custom, positive law. Exactly. A reasonable custom is to be obeyed as a law. Custom can neither arise from nor be taken away by a wrong or injury. Custom can't arise from a wrong or injury, nor be taken away because of a wrong or injury. Although they did in Disney World, when they took all the crocodile topiaries away when that kid got eaten down by the lake. And it was actually by an alligator. It wasn't even a crocodile. But they removed that custom of topiary trees with those animals. So that kind of violates the Maxims of Law, but they are a private corporation, so they're free to do that. Custom is not drawn into consequence. And that comes from Black's. The custom of the place where the action is brought is to be observed. Ooh, that could be good and bad. Oh, let me clear the screen here. Right. The antiquity of a custom is to be less regarded. That is reasonable. Oh gosh. I think this is another one that should be than. The antiquity of a custom is to be less regarded than its reasonableness. So the reasonableness should be regarded more than the antiquity of a custom. And just to distinguish, the things which are done contrary to the custom and usage of our ancestors neither please nor appear right. Yet the antiquity of a custom is to be less regarded than its reasonableness. So we need to make sure there's an alignment from the antiquity and the reasonableness, right, for those customs of our ancestors. General customs are such as prevail throughout a country and become the law of that country. General customs like life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. A prescriptive and lawful custom overcomes the law. Now, here's lawful custom, right? A prescriptive, another key word, and lawful, prescriptive and lawful custom overcomes the law. Joe, cool. Great. Man, we got some good one-liners in here for you. There might be a hidden gem or two. A custom, once disallowed, cannot be again brought forward or relied on. Custom leads the willing. Law compels, draws the unwilling. Look at this. This is very important. Custom leads the willing. Law compels, draws the unwilling. And remember, the custom is the form of good reason. Custom shall be taken, is to be construed strictly. So customs shouldn't require much interpretation. A custom of the truest antiquity is to be retained. Nice. All right, so we're on to debt, debtor, creditor. An evidence of debt found in the debtor's possession is presumed to be paid. The evidence of the debt found in the debtor's possession is presumed to be paid. That comes from Black's and Bouvier's. An evidence of debt not existing is presumed to have been discharged. Another great one. Evidence of debt not existing is presumed to have been discharged. Under the head of creditors are included, but not only those who have lent money, but all to whom from any cause a debt is owing. So creditors is anyone whom from any cause a debt is owing. So not just people that have lent money. Yeah. Nothing can be demanded before the time when, by the nature of things, it can be paid. It can be paid. Nothing can be demanded before a time when, and by the nature of things, I love it, it can be paid. Oh, this is great. A delegated debtor is hateful in law. Delegated debtor. I mean, take that for what you want, but that relates to a lot of things. A delegated debtor. That's another one I got to hold on to there. That's pretty much all the taxpayers are delegated debtors, aren't they? No one is considered to be solvent unless he can pay all that he owes. Ah, so you partially solvent. That doesn't quite make sense, huh? Let him who has nothing in his purse pay his person, lest he who offends should go unpunished. All right, we got 28D. Nothing can be demanded before the time when, by nature of things, it can be paid. In House Joint Resolution 192. Excellent. That which is due unconditionally is due now. And we talked about conditions before. That which is due unconditionally is due now. That which is paid by the order of another is the same as though it were paid by him who ordered it. Okay, so I guess that even works through like a trustee or something. In alternatives, the debtor has the election. Okay. Right, so the creditor can't be doing that, and that relates back to one of these other maxims here, right? All right, let's continue here. Fine, I'm not going to backtrack that far. Debts follow the person of the debtor. That is, they have no locality, and they may be collected wherever the debtor can be found. Can you say bounty hunter? The principal should always be exhausted before coming upon the sureties. Wow. The principal should always be exhausted first. Novation, the substitution of a new debt or obligation for an existing one, is not presumed in law. When two persons are liable concerning one and the same thing, if one makes default the other must bear the whole. Two persons liable concerning one and the same thing. If one makes a default, the other must bear the whole. If anything be owing to an entire body, it is not owing to the individual members, nor do the individuals owe that which is owing by the entire body. Wow. Now that's a nice way to break apart things, huh? If anything be owing to an entire body, it is not owing to the individual members. Right? You don't owe that money to my hand. You owe it to me. Nor do the individuals owe that which is owing by the entire body. So I guess the hand doesn't owe you the money, the entire body does if it's in debt. That's kind of odd, but it makes sense. In all obligations in which no time or date is fixed for the payment, the debt is due on the present day. The liability accrues immediately. Naked reason and naked promise do not bind any debtor. One thing passes with its burden or debt. No, the thing passes with its burden or debt. Where a thing has been encumbered by mortgage, the encumbrance follows it wherever it goes. Wow. The thing passes with its burden or debt. When a thing has been encumbered by mortgage, the encumbrance follows it wherever it goes. Wow. Whatever is paid to be applied according to the intention. Let's read this again. Whatever is paid is to be applied according to the intention of the payer. Whatever is paid is to be applied according to the intention of the payer. So if you paid money for one thing and they apply it towards something else, then that wouldn't be according to the intention. I guess it makes it important to keep intention clear when making payments for something. In the old days when we wrote checks, you could put it in the memo. And that would be a way of expressing your intention. He does not pay who pays too late, for from the delay he is judged not to pay. The refusal of money tendered releases him who tenders it. So if you I guess they want to accept cash and you offer them cash, then that releases him who tenders it. A debt is a legal relation between two parties. A legal relation. What one has paid knowing it not to be due, with the intention of recovering it back, he cannot recover back. What one has paid knowing it not to be due, with the intention of recovering it back, he cannot recover back. Wow. This is an interesting one here at 28W, guys, because there's times where I've seen express loss, and I'm going to look deeper into that. So 28U, let's look into this a little more deeper here. 28U is the refusal of money tendered releases him who tenders it. So when you tender, you give up your money, right? Or a render's giving up tender. Oh gosh. All right. You know what? It's time for this. So let's go into blacks, and we gotta look up tender and see what we have here legally for tender. Give me a moment here because it sometimes takes long. Oh wow. Oh geez, I was just there, wasn't I? I think we got lucky here. Domestic terrorism. As you see, we're using 9th edition here. So they get all the weird words in here, which I don't want on my screen here. Okay. Tender. Jeez. Tender, 16th century. A valid and sufficient order of performance. An unconditional offer of money or performance to satisfy a debt or obligation. A tender of delivery. The tender may save the tendering party from a penalty for non-payment. The tender may save the tendering party from a penalty for non-payment or non-performance, or may, if the other party unjustifiably refuses the tender, place the other party in default. So let's see here. What else? Anything else on tender we should know? Cash tender offer. A tender offer in which the bidder offers to pay cash for the target's shares. Okay, now we're getting weird stuff here for other things here. Something, what are we looking here? What kind of tender was that? Tender of performance, 18th century. An obligor's demonstration of readiness, willingness, and ability. Oops, where'd that go? Darn it. 18th century. An obligor's demonstration of readiness, willingness, and ability to perform the obligation, especially a buyer's demonstration of readiness, willingness, and ability to pay the purchase money, or a seller's offer to deliver merchantable title. An offer to perform is usually necessary to hold the defaulting party to a contract liable for breach. So 2 is also something unconditionally offered to satisfy a debt or obligation. Tender. Contracts attempted performance that is frustrated by the act of the party for whose benefit is to take place. The performance may be okay, so it's different, but we kind of get the idea here that tend, verb, to be disposed towards something, to serve, contribute, or conduce in some way or degree, to have a more or less direct bearing or effect. To tend is to have a bearing or effect, to be directed or have a tendency, an end, object, or a purpose. To tend is to have a purpose, right? And to tender is a valid and sufficient offer of performance, specifically an unconditional offer of money or performance to satisfy a debt or obligation, tender of delivery. So, performance, purpose, to tender. I think we're pretty clear now. Let's go back to the book here, and 28U. The refusal of money tendered, right, releases him who tenders it. So when you're paying, if the person you're paying refuses the money tendered, it releases him who tenders it. You're saying this will be $20. You offer them $20. They say, "Oh, we don't want the money." Well, then I guess it's you're released. You may have it for free. Perhaps that's what they're saying here. That's what I kind of gleaned from it. If anyone else has a better interpretation, throw it in the chat and we'll pop it up there. But it seems like that's what they're trying to say here. And going back to the Black's Law gives us a good indication of the language, although they're using some pretty old editions here. I probably shouldn't be using 9th. But that brings us back to the modern day, because if you do try to bring these topics up in the Maxims and you want to relate them to modern day legal terminologies and such, it's nice to have the more modern definitions there too, as we look back to the etymology of it. A debt is a legal relation between two parties. This is another, 28W is just great. I'll read this one again because it's just so great. What one has paid knowing it not to be due, with the intention of recovering it back, he cannot recover back. Buyer beware. A fire does not release a debtor from his debt. A debtor is not presumed to make a gift. Where a debtor gives money or goods to his creditor, the natural presumption is that he means to get free from his obligation and not to make a present, unless donation be expressed. The right of creditors to sue can neither be taken away nor diminished by agreements among the debtors. No one can owe to himself. I guess that makes sense. All right, we're on to deceit and fraud. Right. The laws help persons who are deceived, not those deceiving. It is safer to be deceived than to deceive. A person deceiving deals in general terms. Get that there? A person deceiving deals in general terms. Fraud should be proved by clear tokens. The fraud of a predecessor does not prejudice his successor. A deception practiced upon one person does not give a cause of action to another. Out of fraud, no action arises. A right of action cannot arise out of fraud. Gross negligence is equivalent to fraud. Oh, here's one of my favorite ones. Once a fraud, always a fraud. What otherwise is good and just, if it be sought by force and fraud, becomes bad and unjust. Absolutely. 29I is definitely the winner of this chapter so far. Once a fraud, always a fraud. And gross negligence is equivalent to fraud. He is not deceived who knows himself to be deceived. Aha. Deceit and fraud shall not defend, excuse, or benefit any man. Deceit is an artifice, since it pretends one thing and does another. That's from Black's. Wow. A new road, not an old one, often deceives the traveler. Wow. A new road, not an old one, often deceives the traveler. Those are roads, they're ideas, fork in a road. Think of that. Wow. Artifice. Let me give you a straight up definition of that here. Cut off the top of my head, but clever, cunning devices or expedients, especially as used to trick or deceive others. Comes from the late Middle English, in the sense of workmanship from the Old French, Latin artificium, based on ars, art, or facere, to make. All right. So as we go on here, yep, you're welcome. So we got the artifice. Right. Clear this off here and let's continue. Fraud lurks in generalities. This is back where, what was the other one it said about fraud? There's another good one here that was clear tokens. Oh, a person deceiving deals in general terms. Let's see that. Yeah, it's a new road, not an old one, often deceives a traveler. Fraud lurks in generalities. Fraud deals in generalities. Ambiguousness, yep, definitely. That's one of the methods. So being aware of these things, and that's why these maxims come in handy, because this is not common sense, this is good sense. And that's something that has to be learned. And it's not just by reading this stuff, but by, as we're doing right here, by thinking about it and contemplating it. That way we can actually ingest this in a way that we're able to synthesize this type of thinking when we're on the fly. Because in this day and age, we're confronted with the absurdities of everything from ignorance to negative intentions all the time when we're dealing with others in positions of authority or power. And there's sometimes abuses that go on, and fraud is one of them. So it's good to know these foundations of fraud. Let's continue here. Fraud is not purged by circuitry. So think about that. Circuitry, circuitous, things in circles. Fraud is not purged. You don't get rid of fraud by running people in circular reasoning. That's what this is saying. Fraud is not purged by circuitry. Fraud lurks in generalities. Fraud deals in generalities. Right? These are some really good ones here. Once a fraud, always a fraud. And yeah, there's, let's see here. Here we go. A person deceiving. This is the one I was looking for. 29C. A person deceiving deals in general terms. Fraud should be proved by clear tokens. Right. He acts in fraud of the law. Who? Through the letter of the law being inviolate, uses the law contrary to its intention. He acts in fraud of the law. Who? Through the letter of the law being inviolate, meaning they're not going to violate the letter of the law, but uses the law contrary to its intention. He acts in fraud. And here's another one of my favorites here. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud. Fraud is odious and not to be presumed. Aha, another one too. And it should be proven by clear tokens. Fraud and justice never dwell together. Right and fraud never live together. I like the first one. Fraud and justice never dwell together. Let him who wishes to be deceived be deceived. Fraud is always positive or intentional and distinguished from negligence. Ooh. Negligence, which is like negative. Interesting. I never noticed that before. And fraud is a positive or intentional, but it's a bad one. Malice. No one is considered as deceiving those who know and consent to his acts. So no one is considered as deceiving those who know and consent his acts. Whoa, that's heavy though. Wow, that's pretty deep. Let no one be relieved or gain an advantage by his own fraud. He who acts fraudulently acts in vain. Right. Let's see, we're going on to deeds. Let's finish deeds, and that'll be it for tonight, and we'll continue. So we're on to deeds and writings. Deeds are more powerful than words. Deeds contain many things which are prohibited to be done. That is not called a deed which does not continue operative. So deeds are operative. In the delivery of writings, an example, deeds. Not what is said, but what is done is to be considered. So deeds are about doing, operative actions. Authority to execute, another good verb, a deed, must be given by the deed. So these are elements of deeds to know. And nicely packaged in these maxims. It is the tenor of the deed which gives validity to the fee. The deed of one should not hurt another. When a deed contains a general clause and afterwards descends to special words consistent with the general clause, the deed is to be construed according to the special words. So the special words need to be consistent with the general clause, if there's a general clause in the deed. So harmonization, consistency with general clauses as you move towards a specific. Bad or false grammar does not vitiate a deed or grant. A deed is nothing else than the vestment of a gift, clothing of a gift, right? The intention is to be taken for the deed. No man can contravene or contradict his own deed. Delivery makes a deed speak. Delivery gives effect to the words of a deed. So the deed is dead until it speaks by delivery. And finally, the law arises from the deed. And the contract makes the law. Yes, the law arises from the deed. We went through that in contracts too. The contract makes the law. We can zoom back to that one too in contracts as we close out for tonight. I like to tie these together the way they relate to each other. That's way up here, huh? Contract is here. Yep. Let's see. Contract was, as it were, act against act. Let's see. It's here somewhere, though. Contract makes the law. Black, second edition. Page 704. That's 24K. So the contract makes the law. Excellent. That's 24K, too. And we're going to go to 30N just to bring that on the screen at the same time to show how these relate to each other, the way we are harmonizing all these maxims. When you can tie together maxims that can corroborate something like this, it really makes your points come through strong. Oops, why is it not showing there? Okay, there we go. Oops. So we have the law arises from the deed, and the contract makes the law. So yeah, we have a nice way to end this here, tying in our previous stream too with what we've learned today. And at that, I'd like to say thank you all for coming and showing up for this live stream. I know we don't get a lot of people here usually because I'll admit sometimes this stuff can be kind of dry to some, but it is very interesting to me and to many others. And I feel like some of these things like Maxims of Law and American jurisprudence and some of the other things we cover here are the essence of living in the, I guess you could say, the lands and the customs that have been bestowed on us here. Let's just face it, there's nowhere else in the world where we can really live out these things and act them out. So by knowing them gives us the power to use them. And I encourage everyone to use what you've learned tonight. And I salute you all for coming here and not spending time doing meaningless things, because I believe we all get a little something out of this. If anything, some more inspiration to keep doing what we're doing. At that, I would like to invite everyone to please hit the like just to help the algorithm getting the word out, to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be alerted next time we come online. And at that, I want to say good night to all, and I'll see you on the next one. Salute.